This conference will now be recorded.
Good. So we are in Shar Yichud Hamasa, the gateway of focusing our actions, devotion, we'll call it. In Safaria, it's 5:26. And we are dealing with the different false notions, temptations that we're often faced with in terms of our belief system and the things that challenge our belief that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, brings to challenge our beliefs. And let's continue. The Kasher Yityaesh, when the Yetzer Hara will give up hope, lepatotcha min apanim ha'ela, to try to seduce you, mislead you, convince you in these other manners. Yishadel b'zeh mitzad ha'gemul va'onesh. Then he'll try to dissuade you from our fundamental belief. Rambam has this as one of his 13 principles of faith, that there is gemul and onesh, that there is a reward and punishment, that our actions lead to something, right? Positive or negative. V'yomer, and they'll say, Ki einam holchim ba'olam al derech hatzedek. Look, there is no justice. Hello, David. Hi, David. Good to have you on board. We just got started with Safaria 5:26. Okay, so one of the approaches of the Yetzer Hara is to convince us there is no justice in the world, there's no reward, there is no punishment. And they'll say, look around, look at the world. Einam holchim ba'olam al derech hatzedek. The world shows that there is no real justice, right? Look around. What do you see? Right? Ilu hayu holchin al derech hatzedek. If this world, if God's world, you want to believe in God, fine, believe in God. You want to believe He's involved, fine, believe He's involved. But don't tell me that there is justice in this world. Look around. If this world were to go in a manner of justice, lo yimetivin l'rasha, you wouldn't have these people who are really bad people, who are living this incredibly pampered, luxurious, wonderful life. Umari'in latzadik. And you have tzaddikim, you have righteous people who suffer, right? This is the classic that Moshe himself asked. Why do we see that the evil prosper and righteous suffer, right? So look around, open your eyes, and you see there is no tzedek. So the answer is Kamosha Amar, like that, like the argument that is said, Mishek Danu Lazarcho, the one that we mentioned earlier in Shar HaRevi'i, in the fourth gate of this Sefer. The Kasha Yigal Chasekal Ofanei Atzedek B'Shnei Inyanim. So this is something that he brought up in the previous Shar, that was Shar Bitachon, and his answer is there is absolute tzedek. Like I always say, if you take a 1,500 page novel and open up to page 843 and read to page 853, you're not going to understand the novel. You go to a 2.5 hour movie, you come an hour and a half late, stay for 10 minutes, and then leave right? You're not going to understand the movie, and you're going to have many, many, many questions. And looking at it in a simplistic manner, you'll say, oh, the author doesn't know what he's doing, right? He wrote a stupid book, right? Because it doesn't make sense, right? But you're only looking at a small part. And this world is a small part of the overall picture. You have to look for the tzedek bishnei ha'inyanim, right? You have to look at both factors, the physical world and the spiritual world, our tenure here and where we're heading afterwards. And only when one sees the whole picture, only then can one recognize and see the tzedek. And the Gemara Avodah Zarah, the Gemara actually says that when a person leaves this world and the judgment is given, the person says, emet, true. A person signs on to whatever is the verdict, so to speak, and recognizes that that is exactly accurate. It is exactly right. So when one understands that we have these shnei ha'inyanim, these two factors to take into account, as we mentioned numerous times, the Hebrew word for life is chayim. Yud Mem makes a word plural. The Hebrew word for life is this plurality. There is our physical existence and our spiritual existence. And the spiritual existence preceded our physical birth, and it will follow and extend well beyond our physical death, our physical passing. And therefore, once a person recognizes that, Yasur hasafek hazeh, then this doubt will no longer be there. Bi'anuach levavo mishibusho, and his heart will be at peace from this error. Just
That, I just have the hard time that I have is, we have to have obviously faith. We can't prove that something is going to happen to someone we have to have faith. And that it's hard sometimes to think, okay, the person will be punished later on. Like, you don't really know. You hope that's the case, but.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It takes this belief in this next stage,
right,
in the previous stage and the next stage. But it's interesting. I have an interesting glimpse from my desk of people who come to speak to me, or I have an interesting glimpse of people's lives. And very often, this person who seems to have this amazing life, and if you look on Facebook, wow, they're having the time of their lives. But in fact, their life is not all that great, and they are intensely unhappy. And you have people who have very little. One of my Rabbeim who passed away, Rabbi Shlomo Price, was an example. He was a person who had some physical disabilities, physical challenges, and financially had a lot of difficulties through his life. And he was one of the most genuinely happy people that I've ever met. So very often our view of someone, right? First of all, our view, this guy is a Rasha, or this guy is a tzaddik. Who knows? Who knows who that person really is? There's a beautiful Gemara in Tanis that a person encountered, one of the sages encountered Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, in the shuk, and asked him, who here is a ben olam haba? Who here is a person who's going to the world to come? And he pointed out a person who was dressed in a manner that Jews don't dress and that the Gentiles would dress. And he tried to corral the guy. Hey, let me talk to you. He goes, I can't talk to you now. I'll come back tomorrow. I'm very, very busy. Okay, seems strange. This is the Olam Haba guy. And he met up with him the next day and he asked him, tell me about yourself. Right? And he said, I work in the prison and I'm Jewish, but I don't dress in a manner that shows that I'm Jewish. I work in the prison, and whenever there is a Jewish prisoner who I see is going to be hurt by others, I do my best to protect that person, right? And if there is he said, I think there was a girl that I saw that she was going to be not violated by some of the men there, and I tossed some wine onto her garments, making it look like she was menstruating, and the men stayed away from her. And yesterday, when I wanted to talk to you, why couldn't you talk to me? Well, there was a meeting that was about to take place, and I need to be there to advocate for the Jewish prisoners. Right. Another time he asked them, who's the Ben Olam Haba? And he points out to these two guys. He goes over to them and say, they didn't look like the most observant or the most righteous of people, regular guys. Tell me, what do you do? Oh, we go round to weddings and we make sure we bring simcha, we bring joy to the groom and bride at a wedding with our antics, right? So who is a tzaddik and who is a rasha? You never know. We had in the parsha class last week how you have an olam hafuch. You have an upside down world, and people who might be doing less are considered to be, but they're doing more. Right? Whatever they're doing is a greater accomplishment for them than someone who's doing more, but the more that they're doing is less of an accomplishment for them, whether because of their upbringing or because of their abilities or their situation. So, we never know who's really righteous, and who's the tzaddik and who is the rasha, right? That we rarely can know. When I used to run a boys' sleepaway camp, I used to call all the kids, "Hey tzaddik," either "Hey tzaddik" or "Hey big guy." So one of the kids said, "Rabbi Ciner, why do you call everybody tzaddik and big guy?" The real answer is, because I don't know your names, right? Right. There'll be 120 kids and the camp lasted for 16 days. It was hard to learn all their names, right? But you never know. Everyone. So we don't really know who's a tzaddik and who's a rasha, and B, we don't really know who's got it good and who doesn't have it good, right? You have people who are living in an opulent lifestyle, and they might be the most unhappy people in the world. Years ago, Natalie and I went to LA there was a rabbi, a conference, and was talking about abuse, right? Spousal abuse, right? Which Rabbi Avram Tversky wrote a book, The Shame Born in Silence, where he says, we have this this mistaken notion that in the Jewish or in the Orthodox Jewish world, that never happens, and we like to believe that hopefully it's less than in other, but it does happen, right? If a person has a personality disorder, then being observant or appearing to be observant is not going to solve that personality disorder. And there were different groups that were there speaking to us just to open up our eyes to this situation that does exist and try to sensitize us to it, to be of help to people who might be in such a situation. And they told us some stories of a family. He was a well-known, respected doctor and living very, very, very well, right? And he right and in public he was so wonderful to his wife, and in private he was very abusive to her in many ways, right? And no one would ever believe her, right? He's the perfect gentleman. He's everyone wants to be like him. So you don't know who's the tzaddik, you don't know who's the rasha, you don't know who has it tov, you don't know who has it ra, right? So even Robin, if we don't go into our belief of the next world, even in this world, it's very, very hard to make that call. Very
I
hard
agree.
to make that
Yeah,
call.
totally.
Yeah. But I once heard a beautiful mashal parable that helped me, because this whole idea of reward and punishment. So to me, sometimes it seems a little bit childish, right? This reward and punishment. If you do the mitzvot, you're gonna get a lollipop, and if you don't do the mitzvot, you're gonna get a slap. And it was explained to me very, very beautifully by a parable, a story, the story of two guys, both in their late 20s, both married to wonderful, beautiful, sweet, caring wives. Both of them have a couple of kids, a son and a daughter, and they're both in the financial world, and they both got a little carried away and overstepped some boundaries, and the SEC came and they were busted, and they both were sent to prison for 25 years. So here are guys in their late 20s. For them, 25 years, I know to us doesn't sound so it sounds kind of young, but for them, I'm going to get out in my 50s, right? Right? What's left to live? That's my whole life. I'm going to be here for the next 25 years. And they both are sent off to prison, but they have very, very different approaches. One guy, his approach is, this is where I am. Wow. The next 25 years, this is where I'm going to be. I've got to make sure that my existence here is as good as it can possibly be. So he's a very, very bright guy, and he's, gets friendly with the guards, and he gets friendly and he's respected by the other prisoners. So whenever there is any sort of dispute, he is the go-to person to resolve this before it gets out of hand. And the prisoners appreciate the role that he plays, and the guards appreciate the role that he plays, and he ends up getting his own cell, and he ends up getting his own TV in there, right? He gets the best jobs in the prison, right? And then the warden hears about him, and he gets to know the warden gets to know him, and there's a congressional investigation of how prisoners are being treated. They come to the prison, and the warden has him meet with these congressmen, right? And he's amazing. He's got the best possible life that one can have in prison. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, he's got a wife. He's got kids who are growing up. See, he sends them a New Year's card, a holiday card, a birthday card. He sends some letters to his wife. Things are going okay over here. I miss you, sweetheart, blah, 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 right? And that's how it goes for these 25 years, right? His kids are going through grade school, going middle school, high school, off to college. His kids end up meeting, having a serious boyfriend, girlfriend. They get married, they have kids. He sends a quick congratulation card to his children, to his son, married daughter, on the grandchildren. And that's how the 25 years go. The other guy has a very different approach. He says, this is where I am. This is not who I am. Who am I? I am a husband. I am a father. I am a provider. I made some stupid mistakes and I got caught. And I'm paying the price of those stupid mistakes. But this is not going to define who I am. And he's fine. He does his jobs at the prison, doesn't make any waves, but he's writing meaningful letters to his wife about what he's going through, how he's growing as a human being, the lessons that he's learning. And he starts writing letters to his wife to read to the kids. And then as the kids are starting to read, he starts writing them letters in block letters so they can read it. And then he's writing them letters in cursive, and they're going through middle school and high school, and they're dealing with the high school issues of boys and girls and drugs and all these things that come up in high school. And he is the confidant for them, and he's giving them guidance, and he's in close contact with his wife. And they have a united front in the way that they are guiding their children through those adolescent years. The kids go off to college. He plays a role in helping them choose which college is best and their career. And then they have boyfriend. If a son has a girlfriend or daughter has a boyfriend, and he's in touch with them. And then they get married, and he builds a relationship, writing relationship with his now son-in-law and daughter-in-law. And then there are kids. And he starts writing letters that they should read to their children. And when the children are able to read block letters, he starts writing letters to them. And then the 25 years are up. So now both of these guys are getting released from their prison. The first guy is released, and there's a big party at the prison. The warden is there, the guards are there, the prisoners are there. They really appreciated this guy, the role he played. We hate to see you go. We hate to see you go, right? A whole nice send-off over there. He walks out of the prison gates, And who's there to greet him? No one. And he makes the phone call. Honey, I'll be home. Okay, we'll see you. And he goes home to whatever relationship or remnant of a relationship that he might have over there with his wife, with his children, and with his grandkids. The second guy, when he walks out of the prison, there's no big fanfare in the prison. When he walks out, who's there to greet him? His wife, his children, the son-in-law, the daughter-in-law, the grandkids. There's a whole beautiful, beautiful greeting, acceptance for him as he leaves. Now, would we say the first guy was punished? He got an onesh, he got a punishment. There was no one there. And the second guy, he got rewarded. What's his reward? The family's there. That's not reward and punishment. If you build it, you've got it. If you don't build it, then you don't have it, right? What each of them have afterwards is simply the continuation of the way they live their life over here. Pardon me, someone's trying to get in. Excuse me. Hello, can I help you? Hello, can I help you? Is that Scott? Oh, no problem. We'll let you in this time. Sorry. So that's the Jewish view on schar and onish, reward and punishment. Meaning, if one lives come in. If one lives, oh, thank you so much.
Mr. Ciner.
Thank you. You're a gem, Ness. Thank you so much. If one lives a godly, spiritualized life here in this world, and is building a relationship with God, with the spiritual, then one has that relationship in the next world. And if one does not have that relationship here, if one does not live a spiritualized life, one lives a life that is focused on, let me make my prison time, my time in this world, as good and comfortable, right? Whoever dies with the most toys wins. If that's how a person lives their life, then they don't have that relationship. And it is explained that the whole olam haba, the whole reward, the Gemara describes it, that tzaddikim sit, right, in a circle, and God is in the middle, and they bask in the presence of God. What does that mean? We don't know what it means. But what it is describing is a connection to God. And that's what we view as the greatest pleasure that a human being could ever have. According to Ramchal, that was the purpose of creation. God, as a good being, so to speak, wants to share good with others. He wants to share the epitome of good. What is the epitome of good? God himself. What does he want to share? Himself. And that is what Olam Haba is. It is that connection, that closeness that we feel with God. And hell is being at a point where I recognize God, but being cut off from him, being separated from him, not being able to draw close.
That was a good story. I like that.
I'm sorry?
So that was a good parable. I like that, how they live their lives and stuff.
Yeah, I always like to, as the Beatles ended off with their classic Abbey Road medley, right? What's the last, right, incredible part of that medley? And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love, bum, 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 you make, right? And that is so true. Right? The relationship, the love that we make here, that's what we bring with us into the next world. And that is the schar and onesh. It's not the lollipop or a slap. No, It's simply the continuation of the decisions that we made here and the life that we lived here. And the reward is connecting to God or not having that connection to God. And we view Gehenna, hell, as a process where a person recognizes the mistakes that they made and thereby is purified. It is a process of cleansing a person from those mistakes, and then the person will be able to connect. But that only takes away any of the negatives. It doesn't create new positives. The creation of new positives, that is what we do over here in the world where it takes effort to make that connection, where we have to push ourselves, where it's not obvious. But I think, when we look at ourselves, Rav Noach has a beautiful piece on this. Rav Noach Weinberg of Eish HaTorah. If you want to know what something was created for, right? So look to see what it does, right? So if I pick this up, right, and I say, what was this for? I try to drill a hole in the wall, right? It doesn't work. I try to use it to stir some food, not overly effective. But, it writes. So therefore, what does it do? It writes. Therefore, this was made as a writing implement. This was made in order to write. So what is it that we do? What does a human being do? Let's look at what we do and then decide what were we made for. So what does a human being do? So, anyone want to venture?
I would say being kind to others, making relationships that last, just like the guy in prison, that you're always
Okay,
helping
but
them.
is that what Yes, but I think there's something more basic that drives us that often translates into what you're saying, Robin. But at our core, we are pleasure seekers.
Mm.
I know that sounds strange coming from a rabbi, but we are pleasure seekers. Sometimes we choose for an immediate pleasure. Sometimes we choose for a delayed pleasure. Schooling is a delayed pleasure in order to give myself the ability to earn a good livelihood that I find meaningful, right? Immediate pleasure, delayed pleasure, right? Sometimes I'm driven by superficial pleasure. Sometimes I'm driven by a deeper pleasure, Robin, a relationship, a connection to someone, right? Giving to others. That's a deeper, a more selfless pleasure, right? But basically, we are driven by pleasure, and the greatest pleasure that we find, right? Compare the pleasure of a relationship to your favorite food in the world, and you can't even mention them in the same sentence. One is a deep, meaningful pleasure. The other is a superficial, passing pleasure. You'll excuse me, that you'll ingest, and then you're going to eliminate it. Within a few hours. That's what we're comparing, right? So when you look at what do we do? We seek deep connection pleasure. And that's what we were created for a deep connection pleasure. The deepest, most pleasurable connection is a connection to God. And that we will have after our tenure on this earth is over, but based upon the relationships and the decisions that we make over here. If we're building that relationship here and doing and having some mesirat nefesh, putting in strong effort, and sometimes sacrificing certain things for that relationship, then it's going to be a strong relationship. And we take that with us. And a person who doesn't will not have that relationship. And that is the schar and the onesh. So coming back to this point of the chovos halvavos, so the Yisroel will say there is no reward in punishment. So right? Why? Because you see evil prosper, righteous suffer. who's evil, who's righteous, who's suffering, who's prospering, and even you have a real Russia, you have a a Gaddafi, you have a Sinwar, right? You have Khomeini. We have some, right, who seem to be living a good life, whatever. Some yes, some not. You see what happens in the end to the Sadats and the Husseins and all the Gaddafis of the world, but whatever, right? But then this is a small part of the picture, right? Right? And like Robin, like you said, it takes a certain degree of faith that there is more that comes afterwards. But yeah, that is part of our belief. But when we look at what drives us, right, we see that we're not just these evolved animals, because what drives us goes far beyond simply survival of the fittest, and we have much more aspirational and meaningful drives that do pull us. And to me, that speaks to the fact that we are not simply physical beings. We are two beings that are combined, the physical and the spiritual. The physical at a certain point dies, the spiritual, that is eternal. Okay, I need to run over to that meeting, so we'll call it over here. We didn't get all that far, but I thought it was a good some interesting stuff. Where are we at in Sefaria? We got to 5:5.
29, we're going to start.
Okay. So
29.
Up to 29. So we went through 28. Good. Okay, my friends. Yesher koach, everybody. A nice tangent, I think. Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. See you guys later. Bye.
See you all later.